Welcome to the replay from our virtual Green Drinks June 2022, where we introduced the EV Experience. Joining us were several stakeholders from the EV Experience program. Enjoy this replay.
All right, well, welcome everyone to Virtual Green Drinks June. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Nick Hebb with SmartNet Alliance. And the Alliance is a group of businesses and organizations who collaborate on projects and initiatives to accelerate Canada's transition to a sustainable economy. So for more information on SNA, consult our website, and I'll share that into chat. And be sure to check out our membership page as well. Yeah, thanks so much. So tonight on Virtual Green Drinks June, we introduced the EV Experience. And the EV Experience is an innovative electric vehicle program that aims to break down barriers to access and shift the perception of electric vehicles. The project will increase access to test drives, add EVs to Ottawa's car share fleet, and provide one-stop website with up-to-date information for all audiences. So that's great. The program is being spearheaded by Enviro Center and is supported by Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa, Communauto, the City of Ottawa, Hydro Ottawa, and SmartNet Alliance. So we're really proud to have that. So first up, let's hear from one of our funding partners in the Ottawa Climate Action Fund. Please help me in welcoming Steve Winkleman. Steve has 30 years of experience in climate change, sustainable transportation, urban planning, clean energy, clean air, infrastructure, resilience, and climate finance. He has supported government officials, researchers, development banks, private companies, and NGOs in more than 25 countries with policy and project development, implementation, evaluation, and capacity building. So welcome in, Steve, to tell us a little bit about what the role that Ottawa Climate Action Fund played.
Super, thanks, Nick, and good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know, OCAF, the Ottawa Climate Action Fund, is an initiative of the Ottawa Community Foundation, and we're one of 7 LC3 centers across Canada, modeled on the Atmospheric Fund in Toronto, with a mission to accelerate Ottawa's transition to an equitable, carbon-neutral future. We have an MOU with the city to help meet energy evolution goals. Both OCAF and the Ottawa Community Foundation are pleased to co-fund this really important project along with Natural Resources Canada. And I'm personally proud to have participated with several of you on this call in what we're calling a public-private philanthropic community collaboration that led to a compelling proposal to NRCan. I'm really honored to be part of the stellar team that Enviro Center led. It's really only through this type of cross-sector partnership that we're going to effectively address the climate emergency. And it's already generating some spin-off projects, but that's for another day. You know that transportation is almost half of Ottawa's greenhouse gas emissions, and the EV Experience is going to catalyze an increase in sales of electric vehicles, an increased use of electric vehicles in Ottawa. But that's not all. As you can see behind me, OCAF's motto is carbon down and community up. The EV Experience is going to bring down carbon in 2 ways. The way that you know about for sure, reducing vehicle carbon intensity, right? The amount of CO2 per kilometer from an electric vehicle, but also reducing travel intensity, the amount of vehicle kilometers traveled per capita, by helping to advance car sharing in Ottawa. And the EV Experience brings community up by providing affordable direct EV experiences for all Ottawans, from renters to rural, as we like to say, and regardless of income. With car sharing, you don't have to be able to afford an EV to use one. EV Experience is in excellent hands with the Enviro Center team that has shown tremendous vision, leadership, and competence in designing and implementing the project. So over to you, Stuart, to tell us all about it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. Great slogan. And yeah, up next, we've got Stuart Slaymaker, who's the Manager of Sustainable Transportation Programs for Enviro Center. He blends his knowledge and attention to detail with innovative strategies to provide inclusive and impactful programs that support Ottawa's transition to sustainable transportation. He has a Master's in Science in Transportation and Planning and Management from the University of Westminster, and over 12 years experience working with businesses, organizations, and municipalities in both the UK and Canada. He gets around town by foot, bike, car, and car share and transit. So that's great, and is passionate about a future that sees clean, green, and accessible transportation for all. If you've got any questions for Stuart, add them into chat as he's going through his presentation. And yeah, thanks for joining us, Stuart, and thanks for spearheading the program.
Thanks, Nick, and hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen now, and hopefully that's working for everyone. Give me a thumbs up, Nick, or yeah, brilliant. Okay, thanks very much. So yeah, hi everyone, and yeah, happy to be here. For those of you who are less familiar with EnviroCentre, a non-profit based here in Ottawa, and our mission is to provide people, communities, and organisations in the city with practical solutions to lighten their environmental load and or environmental impact. We do that in 4 ways. We do that with green business, green homes, green lifestyle, and then the 4th one is green cities and transportation, which is where the EV experience fits in. So what is EV experience? Basically, it exists to help residents of the Ottawa area gain a better understanding of electric vehicles and benefits of using them. And we're doing this, there's 4 sort of main pieces of this project. The first is free electric vehicle test drives. The second is a brand new website all about electric vehicles and electric mobility. Our third is lots of events all across Ottawa. And the 4th, as has been referenced already, is some new electric vehicles and Communauto's car sharing fleet. And I'll talk in a little bit more detail about some of these later on. So where did EV experience come from? Well, it's actually just like looking back through things earlier today, and it's actually basically exactly a year ago. Lots of partners came together for Earth Day Canada's Eco Hacker City initiative. This was hosted locally by the City of Ottawa, and many of the partners that for this project that you'll see on this call today were part of that, including the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa, the Ottawa Climate Action Fund, and SmartNet Alliance. And they had a discussion about how to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles in Ottawa. They were discussing what the barriers are to getting uptake of EVs up, and basically identified that having an electric vehicle test drive service would be a solution to overcome some of those barriers. So that led to a successful funding proposal that was submitted to Natural Resources Canada's Zero Emissions Vehicle Awareness Initiative last year. And yeah, we got the money, and here we are delivering the project, which is very exciting. So in terms of who's involved, EnviroCentre, we're leading and coordinating this project. We have the funding from Natural Resources Canada, as I just referenced, as well as from the Ottawa Climate Action Fund and the Ottawa Community Foundation. And then we have our local partners who are contributing and supporting the delivery of this project. So we have the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa, Communauto, the City of Ottawa, Hydro Ottawa, and of course, SmartNet Alliance. So why are we promoting electric vehicles? Why is this important? Well, the City of Ottawa projects that 90% of all new vehicles sold in the city must be zero emission by 2030. And by 2040, that needs to be 100%. And when we were putting together this project, the number of new vehicles sold in Ottawa, which were those zero emission vehicles, was only around 2.6%. So we need to get up from 2.6% to 90% in around 8 years, which is quite a big jump to make. So this is why this project is important. And one of the reasons why we need to make that jump with those of increasing electric vehicles is because, as I'm sure many of you know, transportation is a huge source of GHG emissions, and not just in Ottawa, but everywhere. But here is the 2nd largest source. And we need to reduce our emissions from transportation by almost 30% by 2030. And just over 35% by 2050. And to kind of illustrate the challenge that there is there, for every 100 Canadians, there are 79 cars. So that's a lot of cars, because that 100 Canadians includes babies, toddlers, and so on. Absolutely every Canadian, even those who can't actually drive yet. And some of you might look at that image on the screen and say, that's great. You can replace those gas guzzling cars in that image with electric vehicles, but you might still have traffic and congestion. But I think, you know, and you should be promoting active transportation and car share and transit and so on. But I think for us, the important thing here is that we've built our cities and our society in a way where it's not actually possible for everyone to make that change overnight to cycling or to jumping on a bus or the LRT, for example. We're trying to get there, but we have a climate target, so we're trying to reach as referenced on this slide, and electric vehicles are an important way for us to reach those targets. So why do people need help with electric vehicles? Well, it's really because there's some real major obstacles to getting people to adopt them into their lives. I think the first is the lack of experience and familiarity with electric vehicles. I think if you ever sort of think about something in your life where it's been new to you and you've sort of needed to incorporate it and make that change, you haven't really known much about it, it's pretty kind of difficult and a bit overwhelming to bring it into your life. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is misconceptions and myths. So people often have sort of incorrect information in their heads about electric vehicles. Maybe it's how far they go. Maybe it's their performance in winter. Maybe it's the frequency and the amount of charging stations that are available to plug their vehicle into. And the third is the lack of opportunities to test drive. And I think that's really important here, because when you're buying something new, you want the opportunity to test it out and to see whether it fits for you. So whether you're buying a new pair of jeans and you want to go and try that on in the store and see whether they look good or not, or you're buying a house, you're not going to just buy it without seeing it. You're going to go in and you're going to have a look around, and you want to get that first-hand experience with whatever that product is. And that's really where this project is helping. So it's giving people that first-hand experience with electric vehicles and education through test drives, through our website, through our events. And through doing that, it's going to help get people that experience and their familiarity with EVs, and it's going to address their misconceptions and their myths that they have with them. So how is EV experience going to help this? So in putting together this project, we looked at some studies out there to see sort of what evidence there is to back up what we wanted to do. And unsurprisingly, people who've had first-hand exposure to EVs are more likely to consider purchasing one, so 72% compared to 44%. And we also looked at what the impact of actual EV test drives is. So a couple of studies, we found that the likelihood of purchasing an EV increases 2 to 3 times post-test drive within 6 months. And another study found that 45% of test drivers bought an EV within 3 months of a test drive. So we know that test drives can really have an impact with influencing people's choices. And then we also looked at the impact of having electric vehicles and car share fleets too. So we know that car share users are 2 times more likely to buy an electric vehicle if they've used one. But perhaps more importantly, car share members who've had that experience with electric vehicles are way more likely to recommend them to their families and friends. So what to expect from EV experience? So just to go in a little bit more detail from that first one of my earlier slides. So we're doing lots and lots of events across Ottawa all through the summer and into the fall. We're doing 20 community events, and we're doing 5 workplace events. We've already got started with our community events. So the picture you can see on the screen right there is from the Blackburn Hamlet Fun Fair that we did just this past weekend. Great event. We did lots of test drives there, had lots of vehicles out, as you can see in the picture, a nice range of them going from Teslas to the new Ioniq 5 that Mike and Sam from EVCO brought along, and so on. And that was, lots of really good conversations with people. People have lots of questions that they want to know, have answered about electric vehicles. So really long, engaged conversations with those people. And that's really when the whole, really such a positive thing. So this is what this project is about. It's about going out, giving people in different communities across the city, different audiences, the opportunity to test drive or test ride an electric vehicle and to talk to us and our experts about their questions about electric vehicles and get them answered. So keep an eye out for our events. Our next event will be on Tuesday, and I'll talk about that, I think, in the next slide or two. What else to expect from us? Well, as I've referenced a few times, test drives or test rides. So you'll be able to take a test drive or a ride with one of us, with one of our vehicles. So this will either be through the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa, EVCO, who their volunteers provide their own vehicles for residents to take for test drives or rides, and they'll take you out on those. It's very generous of them, and they will be able to answer all your questions. We'll also be able to do test drives in the new Communauto EVs that will be joining their fleet. So come out to an event to take a test drive on one of those, but also we'll be coming soon, be bringing those electric vehicles to your door too. So bringing them to your community, so you don't necessarily have to come out to us, we can come to you. So we want to make sure that these test drives are accessible as possible to everyone in Ottawa. So that's really trying to make that happen. There are going to be 5 new electric vehicles in Communauto's car sharing fleet in Ottawa. And I think Wilson from Communauto is talking a bit later on, so I don't want to steal too much of what he's going to say, but this is really exciting. As a Communauto member myself, I can't wait to be able to take one of those out. 2 of those vehicles are going to be in lower income neighborhoods in the city, which is really important in terms of making sure that those vehicles are accessible to a wider range of people. And I think, as Steve was saying at the start, it's just really this is really important, this piece, because not only are we giving people access to electric vehicles through adding them to the Communauto's fleet, it's also a great way to promote car sharing, but also for people who don't own a car but can be a member of Communauto, it's a great way for them to get some access to some zero emission ways of getting around. And then the final big piece is our EV Experience website. This is live. The link on the screen there, evexperience.ca. You can go to that right now, and well, not right now because I'm talking, but you can go to it after this presentation, and you can have a look through our website. So yeah, evexperience.ca. That's where you'll find our event schedule. We'll be updating that throughout the summer with our events as they all get confirmed. That's where you'll be able to find a link through to our test drive booking tool, so you can book a test drive with the project. And you'll find lots of information on there about charging, range, costs, rebates, environmental benefits, and more. And I am just going to take a couple of seconds to actually show you the website. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, and then I'm going to pull up the website. Hopefully we can see that. Nick's giving me a thumbs up. Mike is nodding his head, which is a good sign. So this is the EV Experience website. This is the homepage. If you want to keep up to date with what it is that we're doing, throw in your email address into there and hit the subscribe button, and we'll be able to keep up to date when we're doing events and so on. If you scroll down, you'll find a link through to booking a test drive. We have some top 3 EV myths zapped, if you can excuse the pun there. And we have some quick links through to our EV basics, ask an expert, and I'll just show you those pages in a bit more detail in a minute. And then we have a link through to exploring EVs. This is a page on the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa's website. It's called their buyer's guide. You can go on there and look at all the vehicles that are available to purchase in Canada that are electric vehicles. I'm sure they're going to talk about that later, so I won't say too much about it. Right at the top here, click on a menu. So this is the EV basics that I just referenced on the homepage. We have things here about, it's all really the fundamentals of electric vehicles. What is an EV, just to start off with? The range, the cost, how does charging work? What about winter? Environmental benefits, rebates, and so on. We have charging basics. I think from our experience, people always have lots of questions about how charging works. So we have some information here on the 3 main types of charging that you can have with electric vehicles. So level 1, level 2, and level 3, or DCFC. And people often want to know where they can charge electric vehicles. So we link through here to the websites where you can find where electric vehicle charging stations are. We have our Ask an Expert section. So I'm just going to scroll down for a minute with this first, but we have different sections on here: getting to know EVs, charging and batteries, the costs and incentives, environmental benefits, as well as other e-mobility, so e-bikes, e-scooters. So you've got lots of questions here. We have answers to them if you click on each question. If you find that you have a question that is not answered, we have our friendly experts up here. So feel free to use the form at the end of this page to send in a question. One of those experts will get back to you. Well, we'll get back to you with their answer, and we'll also post that your question and your answer on this webpage. Also on the menu, you'll find links through to our events schedule and where to book a test drive as well. And I'm just going to finish off my presentation. So that's what to expect from EV Experience. And so how can you all get involved? Well, come out to an event. As I say, we'll have our event schedule on our website. We'll be updating out the events as they get confirmed throughout the rest of the year. So keep an eye on that. We'd love to see you at an event. Also book a test drive. We really want to see people test driving electric vehicles and hope to see you behind the wheel or sitting alongside one of our drivers as we take you out for a test ride. Check out the website, as I've already mentioned. I think even if you're someone that knows a lot about electric vehicles already, hopefully there's something on there which will be new for you. As I say, we are doing lots of events, but if there is an event that you think that would be a great fit for EV Experience, do let us know, whether it's in your community or at a workplace. We'd love to hear from you. And spread the word of your networks as well, family, friends, business networks, and so on. Yeah, we would love to know as many people as possible to know about this project, what we're doing, and come out to an event and do test drives. So I think I've probably overrun massively here, but thank you for listening. There's the website again, evexperience.ca. My email address is there as well, so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Stuart. Yeah, fabulous work. The website's looking great. Important to mention that the booking tool's maybe not quite live yet, but we're expecting in the next few weeks, right?
Sorry, you caught me as I was taking a sip of water. Yeah. Yeah, so the booking tool is working. So if you come out to an event, you'll be able to use this at an event. In terms of its visibility off of the EV Experience website, it should be there over the next couple of days. Yeah.
Fabulous. So yeah, definitely click back there. Lots of great information. I know, you know, as folks are starting to look to get into an electric vehicle, there's all those things around charging and, you know, that kind of thing that is interesting. So for now, go study up and then check back early next week and you'll be able to get in and book your test drive and then check out all the different events that are going on as well. So thanks so much again, Stuart. I didn't see too many questions into chat. You may get a few kind of coming throughout, but I guess assume that most people are just kind of absorbing the information and going over the website. So once again, thanks again, Stuart, for joining us.
No problem. Thank you. And I should actually also plug that our next event is on Tuesday at the Nepean Sportsplex, Tuesday, June 14th, 5:30 to 8:30 in the evening. So come on down if you're in that area. Pay us a visit and hopefully see you there and take you out for an EV test drive.
Yeah, no, that's great. Hopefully we get a nice dry day and some good weather and folks can burn rubber over there at the Sportsplex. So that's great. Thanks again. So next up, we've got Mitchell House, who's a project manager at the City of Ottawa, and he's working to support electric vehicle adoption among residents and within cities' operations. He has been driving an EV for the last 5 years, has supported his family in purchasing their first EV, and also works to educate future EV owners about advancements in EV technology as a member of the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa. So come on in, Mitchell. Give us an update on what you're up to at the City of Ottawa. I know you're working hard on getting a lot of chargers out there. And yeah, just give us an update on how things are going there and what folks can expect to see out of the city supporting electric vehicles going forward.
Sorry about that. I was just trying to get my screen shared properly. I think I've managed to do that properly. Yeah, so as Nick mentioned, I am working for the City of Ottawa and I do all things electric vehicles. So everything to do with personal vehicles, fleet vehicles, public transportation, all that's kind of part of my domain. So happy to go into some details about what we've done recently and then also just talk about some of the work that that's still ongoing and things we have to do going forward. I was going to briefly talk about these in a little bit of detail in terms of electric vehicles and how that fits with the city's plan. Some of our city charging infrastructure we recently deployed. The electrification of public transportation, an update on where we're at and where we're going. The electrification of the city's fleet, and then in the spirit of this kind of announcement around the electric vehicle experience, just talk about the importance of community partnerships as well. So as many of you probably know, the City of Ottawa has its own goals for electrification of the city, or I guess of vehicles, of people's vehicles in the city. 2030, we have in our plan for energy evolution is 90% of electric vehicle sales. So that's new vehicle sales, not necessarily all vehicles. And then by 2040, this would be 100%. But as many of you probably also know, the federal government announced in 2035 that they would be banning the sale of gasoline vehicles. So we'd likely reach 100% before 2035. So when we update energy evolution, inevitably, that'll be reflected in that that update. As well, recently we've had some charging stations installed on the street side. So we have 24 charging stations in 12 different locations, and those are all distributed throughout mostly urban areas. This is our first set of on-street charging stations, and currently the rates that we've set for them are $2 per hour, which is in line with a lot of other level 2 stations that are in other municipalities. And it's also in line with a lot of the other stations that are in the city prior to these ones being installed. The dogs like them, the streets like them. It seems like everybody likes them, so happy to see those deployed. If you were curious about where these are, or if you want to go and check them out, we have a map that's here. Got on the furthest west one is going to be around the Real Canadian Superstore. Working your way east, there's along Wellington Street. Got some on Preston or off of Preston Street. Got some in sort of the Byward Market area, New Edinburgh and Vanier, as well on Main Street, as well as just off of Riverside Drive there around Herdman Station. So a wide array of different locations. As you probably have heard, OC Transpo is electrifying their fleet of their 40-foot buses. So these buses here, you've likely seen, have a nice green colorway on them. We've purchased 4 buses to date, and there's plans to have 450 buses deployed by 2027. And with that as well, the plan is also to electrify their entire fleet by 2036. And we're also in the process of studying applications for electric paratransit vehicles, because there's a lot of new entrants into this space. So we're evaluating the different vehicles that are on offer and whether or not they fit with the needs that the City of Ottawa has for its paratransit fleet. So all very exciting stuff. If you've never ridden in one of these electric buses, I would highly recommend it. They're absolutely silent. And all the drivers seem to like them. I did a tour of their facility, and they've got had all their technicians out and talking about how they find them in terms of servicing. So generally it's a positive experience so far, and hopefully it continues to grow going forward. In terms of our city fleet, we've got these electric bylaw vehicles, which you may have seen prior with if you were getting your vaccine at one of those city facilities. A lot of bylaw vehicles that showed up happen to be electric. So those are Hyundai Kona vehicles currently, and the current focus is on bylaw given sort of their predictable driving needs in and around the city. And they're not really a specialized use case. They're really just to get people around town from point A to point B all the way through point Z. So the other issue we're kind of dealing with as well is, as with everything in the supply chain issues, there's a lot of lead time on getting any electric pickup trucks into our fleet, but they are on our radar, and we do have some analysis around the total cost of ownership and the savings that you can get from them. So very excited about what the future looks like for the city's fleet as well. And then finally, in the spirit of this announcement here, those community partnerships are still going to be an important part of our work going forward. So the work that Enviro Center, EVCO, OCAF, and everybody else is involved with plays a really important part in getting the community aware of the benefits of electrification, addressing those misconceptions, giving some real world examples of use cases, And then hopefully with those test drives and rides, influencing people towards purchasing an EV going forward. So all really important stuff, and we're really excited to be working on as part of this project with all the community partners that are here today. As with everything, we like to plug our own newsletters around climate change. So we update this every month around what the city's been doing on climate change mitigation and adaptation. You're welcome to sign up with this on our website with the ottawa.ca/climate change page. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you can do so. It's alphabetically sorted, so you'll have to scroll through the hundreds of other newsletters to get to the most important one, which is climate change, and select that one from that list so that you can sign up and get all of our updates. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email the climate change email inbox, and anything related to EVs will come to me. But if you have any questions about climate change in general, we can sort through that and get it to the appropriate people. So feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. A few questions kind of came through that we'll roll through now. Linda's wondering, do moves towards biofuels figure in the future goals at all anymore, or is it just EVs?
On the, well, there's two things. Biofuels is a pretty broad spectrum of fuels. So everything from renewable natural gas to biodiesel to ethanol blended fuels for gasoline cars. So it does feature in a couple of different applications, but with a lot of things related to biofuels in general, you're still burning something, so you're still producing emissions, and it can be used as part of an interim measure towards reducing emissions while we wait for availability of different zero emission technologies. But there will be likely a place for things like renewable natural gas in sort of various applications, from heating to storage of energy and powering generators in the events of power outages and things like that. So it's on our radar, but it's not the end goal to have everything switch from gasoline to a biofuel and replacing. So.
Okay, and Riyadh's wondering, has there been any feedback from city EV fleet drivers and maintainers so far for the EVs?
Yes, we do an annual report from our fleet that speaks to sort of the fuel savings that we experience. So we have a lot of hybrid vehicles, and those reduce gasoline consumption, but our electric vehicles reduce it obviously much further. So we've been tracking kind of our reduction in fuel usage as a proxy for how our GHG emissions work. So that's trending in the positive direction. Or I guess our reductions are trending up and our GHG emissions are trending down. I think anyways, it's complicated. We're doing good. And then in the terms of the maintenance side of things, the only issue we've had is that the vehicles needed to have winter tires in order to perform to those sort of specifications. They're front wheel drive vehicles. They definitely needed winter tires anyways. But otherwise they've been just running perfectly fine with no maintenance issues. The batteries haven't blown up. They're still running great. And they work through winter as well. So they haven't ever stranded their drivers in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a snowstorm while they're driving around, say, the Glebe. So all good news so far.
Yeah, that's great. Gutam was just wondering, a little bit off topic here, but he's wondering, are there any studies from the car manufacturers showing the true environmental cost, including manufacturing, operating, and disposing? Are the EV manufacturers on board with the circular economy? Don't know if you had a couple thoughts on that.
I have some thoughts. I'm sure Raymond has even more. But the two that I typically go back to are Tesla does an annual report on their impact on climate change. So they do a life cycle analysis from production of vehicles to end of life. And then also after end of life, there's the recycling phase that they speak to as well. So they're building in a lot of recyclability into their battery cells, and they can take those cells and repurpose them in different ways. And the results of that impact study basically show that by driving an EV just a small amount of distance, you've already saved on the total life cycle cost compared to a gasoline vehicle. So that's one that I would highly recommend people get familiar with. And the other one is from Polestar. Polestar is sort of a branch of Volvo that does a lot more related to electric vehicles and sustainability. And they do a similar life cycle analysis on their vehicles, but then they also are one of the few car companies that wants to make net zero life cycle vehicles. So they won't be producing carbon through their supply chain from the manufacturing of batteries to the recyclability and all that. Their goal is 2030, but if you want to read into more of what their plan looks like, I would recommend checking out their website.
Yeah, that's some great resources. Raymond, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll just chime in for a bit. The thing you have to remember is that when there's a change in the industry, there's always some winners and losers. So in this case, there are some very strong economic interests that have a lot to lose with the transition from hydrocarbons to electric transportation. So nobody's asking what's the life cycle cost of your laptop, your cell phone, and the impact on the environment. Same thing with conventional vehicles, right? So it's clear that given that EVs are manufactured products, that there is an environmental footprint and a carbon footprint, right? It's clear that there is, and it would be foolish for us to say it isn't. However, it's clear from all the reliable studies that I've seen that EVs are considerably better than gas or diesel equivalents. And given that we are in a climate crisis, and that greenhouse gases are what's causing that the climate crisis, the objective for us is really to reduce greenhouse gases as much as possible.
Yeah, great, good points, Raymond. Yeah, that's important to remember. I got one more question for Mitchell, and then we'll get him off the hot seat. Mitchell, someone's wondering, is there a target for public charging stations per capita by the city? Have you guys kind of looked at some targets there?
We look at it and it keeps shifting every time there's a new announcement around. The federal government has new funding that we typically use to support our infrastructure and our goals for that. And the thing we're trying to figure out is what the proper goal should be, whether or not it's related to the number of vehicles in Ottawa, whether it's the number of people in Ottawa, whether or not it's related to the demographics of different neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods may need more public infrastructure than others. And then how does that all kind of figure into the overall infrastructure of the city? So there are, like, say, in the Byward Market, there's a lot more parking garages where you can facilitate charging infrastructure to be installed there. But then that area becomes more concentrated with charging than most other parts of the city. So it's a moving target at the city as the city continues to grow and develop. But it's always an interesting discussion that you have with people around where stations should go. And we've done a lot of public consultation around the current thinking about where people want those stations to go, and we're evaluating that kind of feedback as part of our ongoing work to figure out where charging stations should be installed in the future.
Yeah, no, great work. And it's nice to see all the stations popping up all around town, which is great. Michael, I know you had a very important thought about your condominium. I'll kind of let Raymond take the lead with you there, and some of the other folks to sort of address that in the interest of time, but really appreciate your thought there. And we know that that's a bit of an issue of folks living in condos and being able to charge there. So hopefully some of our presenters are able to get you some studies to back up your thing. But thanks again, Mitchell. Really appreciate the work you're doing with the city, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Steve. Nick, sorry.
All good. Get yourself a coffee too, right?
I need some extra work today. That's all good.
All good. So let's shift gears a little bit now and start talking about some car sharing. Next up, we've got Wilson Wood, and he's been involved with urban transportation for many, many years. For the past 2 decades, Wilson has been at the forefront of mobility on demand in Ottawa and was one of the co-founders of Virtue Cars. So anybody who drove and remembers that will have Wilson to thank. That was the first car sharing service in the National Capital Region. Under his management, the service grew from a 1-car operation with 6 members to 135 shared cars supporting 5,000 users in Ottawa and Kingston. So great work. As the director with Communauto, Wilson's providing leadership as they added one-way service in Toronto and added 5 station car cities in Southern Ontario. He currently serves as project lead for Communauto's participation in the EV Experience project, an exciting evolution of the electric car that's going to see the first shared EVs on the streets of Ottawa since 2010. So welcome in, Wilson. We know you're up north enjoying the heat wave in Yellowknife there. Thanks for joining us, and excited to hear a bit more.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nick. Yes, indeed, I am about 20 kilometers outside of Whitehorse, and this call is being powered by some solar panels on the residence where we're staying. Internet connectivity is weak, so I hope I don't disappear on you and all of the buttons. Start off by seeing if I can get my screen share to work, and I'll give you a little presentation. And I have to make that bigger, and then hopefully we'll be able to enable and get into a little bit of a video.
Perfect. Yeah, coming through, Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Communauto, we started off 2 decades ago or so, and certainly have become what we believe is a mainstay in the mobility options for Ottawa. But how does it work? I'd be shocked if we didn't have some Virtual Car / Communauto members out there listening, but this is how we're sharing our cars now. In the beginning, we didn't really have a real car, sort of a proof of concept, but we've gone a long way from that. And so how do we share cars? And this is where we need to make sure that the back. Yeah, my enable the video seems to be challenged a little bit. So I can tell you very quickly that the way that people share our cars is that they access them through an app or over the phone. You go to the car that you reserved. Maybe, is this going to work? Oh, it's a little slow. Here we go.
Yeah, we're loading up. Thanks, Wilson.
Thanks.
We've all seen these cars around town, right? It's great.
Yep.
They're everywhere. That's a great feature to allow people to get into the cars too.
Wonderful. So that's how you share a Virtue car. Now we need to go to who shares a Virtue car. Here's a collection of Ottawa notables, and that people who have been just a selection. And what is unique about these people? Well, this is anyone who's over the age of 19. They have a valid full driver's license and a clean driving record. These people, what is really unique about them is that they generally work or live 8 to 10 minutes from one of our locations. That's the tolerance level that people seem to like to be able to get to one of our cars to do a trip. And how do they get there? By foot, by bike, by transit, by ride share. And why? Because 90% of these people do not own and operate a car. Why? Well, cost of ownership, cost of operating a car, as we know, is ridiculously expensive, and it continues to go up. A lifestyle, I don't need to own a car. People do want to reduce their carbon footprint. And probably the biggest reason is a lack or the ridiculous cost of parking. So the way our ratio works is approximately 24 users per car. And we, the magic of car sharing is that these people will go online, see what's available, and then shift the time they take the cars to the availability based upon the other users in the system. So that's the real magic of the technology of car sharing, is that it makes these cars, which are already efficient, be they hybrid, be they electric, be they even gas cars, it's just they are supporting so many users. By the way, that yellow car is the 100th car that we had in our fleet. So we moved a little bit from that chalk level representation of a vehicle. Where are the vehicles? Well, as you can see, we're concentrated in the downtown. The moment our imprint or our network goes from Bayshore to Vanier, and from Gatineau to Baseline, there's approximately little more than 220 stations where you can pick up one of our vehicles in that network. In Ottawa, you imagine Bank Street and Carling as the two spines that we hang all of our locations off of. And you can get to a car anywhere in that area very, very easily. Next, it's really important that we talk about our partnerships. Partnerships that we're doing with EVX is certainly one, but where we park our cars is a really crucial part of our business model. But as you can see, 40% of them are with our friends Indigo or Vinci or Impark. The municipality, the City of Ottawa, has been a supporter of car sharing right from the very beginning. So we have a car at City Hall, we're at some community centers, other actual city locations. Condos, we do have a number of cars at condos. They give us a guest or a visitor parking space. Co-ops were the first locations to join into car sharing. For example, Sandy Hill Co-op in Sandy Hill has been a member for over 20 years. We love co-ops. Public parking, we're City of Ottawa public parking garages in the Glebe and down in the market. And we are also at many, many private locations. So like what used to be a garage or an apartment building or a multi-unit house. So that's where we end up parking those cars, and we're always moving them around and always looking for new locations. But no, the growth just continues to go. Now we're going to be moving into a really exciting area with the EV experience. And yes, Stuart, sit down, calm down. That's actually one of our cars on the road that we're taking it out for a test drive to be able to check our communications that happens with all of our cars. When you saw how to reserve it, we have to put some onboard communications. But this is a Kia Niro. And oh my goodness, it's a very nice car to drive. I was able to take it around the block, and we do have them. They're still at the dealers. We're still doing a little testing, but they're going to be entering into our fleet any day now. So that's very exciting. And the fact that people are going to use our cars either to test ride through our partnerships with EVCO and Enviro Center, or to test drive them. Any Virtue Car member will be able to book these cars at the 5 stations that they'll be appearing in our fleet in the next little bit. So any of our members will use them, and the EVX is obviously going to make a great use of them as we go on forward. So we're really excited to be part of this this program. Yes, electric's going to be the way. There's some challenges in terms of buffering the time that there goes between trips. You know, you will have to plug the car in, or there will be something to pay. But no, we know this is the future, and we're really happy to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wilson. Yeah, fabulous looking vehicle. It gets me excited to get behind it already. So will folks be able to sort of see where these electric ones are if they particularly wanted to go electric with their car share?
Yes, when the bookings happen, you will see that it's an electric car. There'll be a little symbol. We know that I can tell you the 4 of the locations are confirmed. The World Exchange Plaza, 150 Elgin, 357 Waverly. There'll be a OCH building at Gladstone and Rochester. And we're in discussion and very positive discussions with Bayview Yards. So those 5 locations are going to be the host locations for the 5 electrics that'll be joining the fleet.
That's great. Yeah, someone was just asking that, so very timely. Steve's also wondering, how do we help convince the city to allow Communauto's flex, i.e. park anywhere service as they do in Montreal? Any thoughts around that?
Oh dear, you're bringing sadness to me. You're referring to a one-way car sharing service, and if I have any failure in my career, it is that I've failed to bring one-way car sharing to Ottawa. And we could talk for many presentations about the challenges of on-street parking in Ottawa. It's something we've talked about with the city. We need them to show some leadership in terms of allowing it to happen. We're ready. They've had a proposal from us for many years, but well, maybe this is a upcoming civic election. If anybody goes to a meeting, stand up and ask candidate, well, what are you going to do about the on-street parking issues for mobility on demand in Ottawa? I know I will.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Wilson. Really appreciate you joining us all the way from up north there, and maybe one of our first speakers powered by solar. So that's great. We had one more coming in. How many cars are in the fleet total, and around how many members do you have? If you have those off the top of your head.
Currently, we're over, when we include Gatineau, Ottawa, and Kingston. We're over 220 cars, and that's over 7,000 users.
Great. And if people want to get signed up, just hop over to the Communauto page, right?
You just go to Communauto, Ontario, and I'm sure Stuart will link the our website, and it's simply a matter of signing up. And again, takes 3 or 4 days to sign up and get your official package in the mail. That's why we're so pleased that anybody who wants to do a test drive will simply just be able to go through the EVX program and sign up. You don't need to be a Communauto member to use it with EVX. So we can skip that for people who wish to have a test ride.
Fabulous. Yeah, I know I'll be signing up to take a ride there. It's a great looking vehicle. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for all your work in bringing ride sharing and car sharing into the Ottawa market and beyond. Just a reminder to stop share there, and great to have you on board with the EV experience. Thanks again, Wilson.
Okay. Thanks, Nick.
Cheers. Thanks so much. So next up, we have a presentation from Hydro Ottawa. Unfortunately, Margaret Flores was not able to join us, but we're very happy to have her colleague Rayad Abdul to join us. And he's worked in the energy field for over 30 years, and almost all of it for Hydro Ottawa, Canada's national capital's electricity distributor, and all of it doing something with or about EVs. He drives a Volt when his family will let him, and next car will be all electric. He describes himself as a professional, continuous learner who would always want to be smarter than an AI machine. He's also motivated for doing the right things and better regardless of how challenging. So thanks again, Rayad, for joining us. Excited to hear about some of the initiatives that Hydro Ottawa is up to around electric vehicles.
Pleasure's all mine. I've enjoyed the presentation so far. And, you know, Hydro Ottawa is no stranger to electric vehicles. You've heard today already that we're involved in many initiatives, but even before the utilities amalgamated to become Hydro Ottawa, each one of them were involved in electric vehicles in some way or the other. And going back to EVCO's electrothons that were out there with the high school students and at the Capital City Speedway, and even doing we had an electric Bedford vehicle from the Ministry of Transportation that we got to work with and learn from. And where we're at right now is really, it's hard to turn a corner and not see an electric vehicle. It's a wonderful thing. And we know that that's going to add load to the grid. The question is how much of that is going to show up, and can we tame it? Can we be able to supply that that demand? So what we're doing at this stage in the game is we're partnering with Blue Wave AI, who is leading a project that will involve managing EV chargers behind the meter, so in customer premises. Primarily, we're going to deal with the ones in residential applications, and also looking at if we need to put in batteries on the residential circuits, then what role, when would we need to start installing them, and what role can they have in terms of reducing our need to bulk up the upstream distribution system? This is a 3-year project, so it'll end in March of 2025, and it has 4 key milestones, and will involve, like any smart grid project or grid modernization project, many aspects of the utility, different groups in the utility. We do thank the ISO Grid Innovation Fund for providing the support, the approval and the support for this project. And this is the first time that also the regulator is very keen on learning the outcomes from the study that's being undertaken. As I mentioned, it's right now hard to turn a corner and not notice an electric vehicle. It's what we know as what's happening in our grid is that 89% of our stations have at least one electric vehicle charger connected to them. So that gives us an indication that it's pretty broad across the city. The other is that 31% of our feeders have at least one charger on them. So that tells us that, well, there's also some concentrations happening across our city. But what's even more interesting is that at least 111 or 12 residential distribution transformers have 2 or more chargers on them. So that means that there's more concentration happening within neighborhoods. And, you know, it's the one about trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? So we know that that's going to add load. EVs are going to add load to the distribution network, and it'll be right down at that distribution station, distribution transformer. So before we want to replace that, we want to try and learn how we can manage that load. And before we have to upgrade the distribution circuits within the neighborhoods, we want to see if we can interject with batteries that can inject power at the peak times of use. Now, electric, so there are different tools that could be deployed in trying to manage the load. Time of use has been said to be one. One thing that we are finding is that time of use is a really good tool to kind of train people that the cheaper time of the day is the time where there's lowest power usage, and therefore it'll be cheaper and the system can accommodate. But with electric vehicles, as you know, they're large loads. And we've been noticing that people are plugging in at various times during the day, but majority of them are starting to charge right at the off-peak time start at 7 p.m. So it creates another spike of load, and that continues on until the vehicles are charged. So super time of use rates, will they work? Yeah, they'll probably help as well, because it'll encourage more people to shift off of that 1 hour, like the get-go start of the off-peak period, and kind of diversify the load profile. So the reason why we're undertaking this is because as a company, we want to try and achieve net zero operations by 2050 as well. And we would love to be able to do that and help our customers and the community of Ontario do the same. So we're happy to be part of these EV initiatives that are being undertaken.
Yeah, thanks so much, Riyad. It's great to have Hydro Ottawa as part of it, and you know, great to have your muscle behind the EV adoption. I'm wondering, are there any other tools in your toolkit to get folks to think about, you know, mostly charging overnight? Obviously, you mentioned time of use. What are some other ways that we can get people sort of, you know, really kind of gung ho to charge overnight as opposed to during the day?
It's really coming down to awareness. But as EVs proliferate more, you get more different types of people, and they have different needs for transportation. So someone who's coming home after work and then has to drive kids around to different games may just have to bite the bullet and charge to get the extra range. Now that also depends on how much capacity they really have in the EV. But really, I think it comes down to educating people that, do the right thing for yourself, for the community. If we try and avoid having to upgrade the grid, then that helps electricity pricing as well overall.
Now, something else we feature quite a bit are heat pumps. It's another technology that people are quite interested in. Are you folks kind of looking at heat pumps as well, as opposed to, the city of Ottawa wants 300,000 online by the end of the decade. So what are some thoughts around handling the heat pumps and the EVs on the grid there? Good
point. So EVs is one of the loads that will be used to electrify and reduce greenhouse gases. Other things that will happen is the conversion of fossil burning heating to electric. We are looking at that as well, and what kind of impact it will have and how we can be ready to serve that load. So you probably heard LeBreton Flats project that is scheduled to be net zero. We're already involved actually at the Zibi One Planet with our Zibi utilities. There's other communities that are slated in Ottawa that are targeting net zero, and we're working to see how we can make that happen for them.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rayad. We know it's been a busy month for Hydro Ottawa. Lots going on, obviously getting people back onto the power, but nice to see some of those initiatives. And if folks are wanting to be part of that Blue Wave initiative, is there sort of a sign up or something like?
Yeah, so we are interested in finding out what it would take to motivate people to be part of this demand response project in managing EVs behind the meter. If you're interested, please send me an email. I'll put it in chat. We are wanting to understand the interest now, but the final selection will likely happen early next year. And the participation of EV owners will happen sometime next year.
Great. Yeah, I think Mike just signed up for your first volunteer there. Just shifting gears, Scott's just wondering when net metering, is it possible to charge your EV from your solar array during a power outage? I know something that folks were sort of thinking about recently.
So that all depends on the technology of your inverter. So there are inverters that will allow you to be off grid when the grid is not there or you wish not to be connected to the grid. And further to that, there's also inverter technologies that will allow you to do two things. Like one of them is that so long as the sun is shining, you'll be able to generate electricity and use it and charge your battery at the same time too. There's other technology that will only allow you to do one thing or the other. And there are inverters actually that once the grid is off, won't let you to generate at all. So look at your inverter technology.
Yeah, and invite everyone to join us next month when we talk about the Tales from the Storm. We'll have Art Hunter, who's a microgrid owner, and he'll go through his whole setup. We've also got Mike back, who he was powering people through with his vehicle. So I'll put another link into chat there for folks to join us next month. Lynn, I know you had a bit of a general question. I might shave that for the EVCO guys. I didn't see anybody else, but want to thank Rayad so much for coming in, and great to meet you, and great to hear about all the work you're doing. Really appreciate you joining us.
Likewise, and congratulations for everything that's happening in the EV world.
Absolutely, yeah, no, for sure. So let's turn over to the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa now. We know that they're a big partner in the delivery of the EV experience. Raymond's basically at every event all the time, as well as Mike. So we've got both of them. We're going to start off with Mike Banks. He's going to talk a little bit about generally just EVs out there. We know a lot of people are hungry for them. There's a bit of a wait. So he'll kind of go over that, and then Raymond will come in and talk a little bit about where we can expect to see the EV experience throughout the summer. So Mike has a degree in public affairs and policy management, and he currently works as a trade data analyst at StatsCan. He's owned an electric vehicle since 2017, which he uses as his daily commuter vehicle, and he's in the process of retrofitting his house with clean technologies with the goal of making it net zero before 2030. So he's actively helping people transition to zero emission vehicles, having already converted most of his friends and family. And if the storm didn't help accelerate that, we don't know what would. So thanks again for joining us, Mike. Come on in. You can share your screen and get rolling on your presentation, talking about EVs in general. What's up there?
All right. Thanks a lot, Nick. Can you guys hear me all okay?
Yeah, looks good. Sounds good.
Cool.
You're all good to go.
And I just need to figure out how to full screen it with all the Windows stuff here. I know somebody's probably yelling at the screen right now. Just hit this, but my Windows bar is in the way. Hang on.
It's pretty full. There's a little bit of a cutoff, not horrible.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Just give me a sec here.
Slideshow, I think, is what you want.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Where's the slideshow? Where do I see it?
Right by animations.
Yes. From the beginning.
Yeah.
There we go. Beauty. Sorry about that. And yeah, Rayad, I would happily volunteer to join the project. I'm getting a heat pump soon as well. Hopefully this month. It's been super delayed, but anyway. All right, so I'll be talking about electric vehicles available in Canada. Hopefully the talks so far have convinced at least some of you that maybe EV is the way to go. And so if you're starting to consider purchasing a vehicle to replace a gas car, hopefully, then hopefully this talk will help you out a little bit. So just a bit of an overview here. I'll be quick about this whole thing. I know we're sort of pressed for time a little bit. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown on the history of EVs. They've been around a bit longer than you think. A bit of a role of plug-in hybrids. So not just normal hybrids, but the plug-in kind. I'll give you a sense of what the current market's looking like. Don't hold your breath. Is a spoiler. The federal rebate, so I'll talk a little bit about that, the current challenges to switching over to electric vehicles, and then some of the vehicles that are coming soon, and then I'll finish off with our buyer's guide that Nick mentioned earlier. All right, so a bit of a brief history here. A lot of people are surprised to learn that EVs have been around for about 10 years now, or just over 10 years actually now. Now that it's 2022, the pandemic kind of paused time for me there, but anyway, the Tesla Roadster was the first long-range, like proper EV to hit the market. Now, of course, that was limited production, super expensive, toy for the rich kind of thing, but it proved the concept, right? That EVs can be quick, they can be fun, they can go really, really far, and it sort of broke the mold. The Nissan Leaf was the first mass market EV in a normal car, affordable-ish type of way, where it had a reasonable range of just over 100 and some odd kilometers when they were new. They were, around 45,000 Canadian-ish when they were new, and they hit the market in 2011. I have a 2012 I bought used, and it's still going strong. So those are sort of the early days of EV. Mine's an OG Leaf. It's a 2012. All right. Now, you've probably heard about plug-in hybrids and hybrids. So the original hybrids, which are basically just a gas car with a small battery and a small electric motor that helps out every once in a while. Those have been common. Those have been around for about 20 years. They sort of came out when I was in high school. And they haven't really changed all that much in the past 20 years. They're still, like, if you go and buy a Prius today, it's pretty much the same as the Prius was 20 years ago when it came out, where it's mostly a gas car. So it runs gas pretty much all the time. And then it harvests a little bit of energy as you brake and puts that into a battery. So you can go a few hundred meters in electric only mode until you're back into gas mode. Plug-in hybrids are a bit different on that idea. So a plug-in hybrid has a much larger battery. And now some of the EV purists in the audience will probably be like, the Chevy Volt's, a range extended EV, but it's like, for our purposes here, it's a plug-in hybrid where basically they allow you to drive in electric only mode for between 30 and 100 kilometers, depending on the model. That blue van was actually my minivan for a while, for about 5 years. You could do 50 kilometers on a charge with that. And then once the battery is depleted, they switch over to a gas motor and then behave basically like a normal hybrid, like the Prius kind of thing. And so those are actually pretty good. There's a few vehicle types that are still not covered by full electric models, minivans and the Jeeps for now. as to name two. But basically, when we had the van, we were doing 2/3 of all of our driving ever in the van was done in EV mode. So that was pretty good. It'll definitely save you money on fuel if you're looking to go that route. And it's a very good bridge technology in the sense that a lot of people are hesitant about driving long distances and they're hesitant about giving up the pump for good. So a plug-in hybrid sort of breaks the ice. It's like the gateway drug to electric cars. Now it still has drawbacks. It still has the whole thing with fuel cars where you need to buy oil and you have to buy gas and you have to change the oil every year. And there's all the timing belts and the spark plugs and the exhaust systems that get broken. And there's all the maintenance of a gas car. So they have all of that, but they do have the electric mode, and you can run a lot of the time in EV mode. To the point where you forget that you have the gas engine, and then when it kicks on, you think something's wrong with the vehicle, which happened quite a bit with us in our Pacifica. And so that's a viable option as well. The current market right now, so I just did a count. I'll talk about the buyer's guide in a minute, but I'm the one that maintains that and tries to keep it up to date as much as I can. And so there are 90 different electric vehicle models and variants currently in the market right now. They're taking orders and pre-orders. And that's not to mention all the ones that have been pre-announced and are coming in the next couple of years. Prices range between $35,000 and $215,000. Of course, there's always expensive cars, but the prices are coming down. When I did this talk last year, they were still up in the 40s. So now we're down to 35, and I'll show you which one that is. The ranges have people assume the ranges are pretty short. The Mazda is actually the worst EV right now. It's 161 kilometers, with the Lucid Air Grand Touring being 830. There was a Lucid Air that's like 1600 kilometers if you spec it out all the way. I didn't put that in this slide because it's like the exception to the rule. All classes of vehicle are now covered by a plug-in model. So minivans and Jeeps basically don't have the full EV option quite yet. But they're coming very, very soon, like in the next year. Pickup trucks are now arriving on the market that are full electric. So that has been a change in the past year. So I'll give you just a bit of an overview here. So the most affordable option at the moment is a Chevy Bolt EV. Now, I did say there was one that was $35,000, and that is the Chevy Equinox. It's the picture on the bottom left. That one is not out yet, but it's coming. I think they're going to start taking orders this fall. So that will be the cheapest EV when that hits the market in a couple months. But for now, it's the Bolt EV, which I didn't put a picture of here, with a range of 417 kilometers. So that's, that'll get you to most of the way to Toronto with a stop maybe in Kingston or Napanee to recharge, and you're good to go. The best selling EV, and the one that everyone talks about is like, this is what they compare every other EV to, is the Model 3. Rear wheel drive is the cheapest one, and it is, or the least expensive one, I should say. And that's $63,000. The price has gone up several times. Tesla has more demand than they can handle. And so they keep cranking up the price because they're trying to make sure that people aren't waiting like 3 years to get a car. The most expensive, of course, is a Porsche. Has to be a Porsche. It's the one on the bottom right there. It looks really cool. It's the cost of a house. Actually, a house in Nova Scotia, maybe. Anyway, doesn't matter. Other popular brands are Hyundai has the Ioniq 5. That one is mine. It's the, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's the one next to the Porsche here. There's the Kona, the Soul, the Nero, which Communauto has purchased, the EV6, which is the sibling to my Ioniq 5. The ID4 is a Volkswagen. Polestar 2 is the top right there, and the Volvo XC40 Recharge, and the Mustang Mach-E, of course, the red one, looks like a Mustang. All of these cars that I just mentioned qualify for a $5,000 federal rebate, which is what I will talk about next. Oh, no, I won't. I will talk about it soon, though. So the revolution for EVs is happening a bit faster than a lot of people realize. It was alluded to earlier with all the target dates and all that. But basically, it's following a standard adoption curve. So what you see there on the right is just it's a function. It's an adoption curve function. It's basically exponential increase, exponential growth, followed by a logarithmic decay. And it's something that applies to basically all consumer products. Anything that you would buy, like cell phones, TVs, dishwashers, it's all followed this curve when they were introduced to a market. And EVs are no exception. So the red is the model that I I just sort of plugged in some real world data up until 2017. So from 2011, when the EVs sort of first hit the market, to 2017, I plugged that into a formula. It spat out the red line, and the blue is what the real world sales have been. And so I'm thinking my model's holding pretty well here. 2020 and 2021 were a little depressed because of COVID, obviously, but even then they were still above the line. I was a little conservative in my projections, so I'll give you that. But 2022 is right on track. And as you can see, 2033, we're approaching 90% of new car sales. So this is new car sales. It's going to be game over in just around 10 years from now for fossil cars. So if you're thinking that, oh yeah, well, 2050 is when I'll purchase an EV or whatever. No, it's going to be like, you won't be able to find gas cars in the 2030s to buy new. Like, nobody will want them. So keep that in mind when you're looking for a new car, because this will impact resale value as well. If nobody wants fossil cars in 5-10 years from now, how much do you think you're going to get on the used market for your current one, right? All right, so this is the rebate program. It's $5,000. Ontario did have a very generous rebate, and then the Conservatives got elected and immediately killed it. So now we just have the $5,000 rebate. If you live in Quebec, if you're on the Quebec side of the river, then you can get an additional $8,000. The website's there. It lists all the vehicles that qualify for the rebate. It includes plug-in hybrids, so it's EVs and plug-in hybrids, and yeah, it helps with the cost. Now, demand isn't really the issue anymore. So this rebate is funded until at least 2025. It should last a bit longer than that for sure. But it's not a demand issue anymore. It's more of a supply issue, which is one of the challenges that I'll be talking about in a moment. All right, so availability is the main challenge. I'm sure everyone's aware of this. And it's not just EVs, it's basically all cars, all things. If you want graphics cards for your computer, there's a huge wait. I'm waiting on a heat pump. I ordered it in October. It has not arrived, and now we're into June. So I'm anxiously awaiting things like that. So availability has always been an issue with EVs, and now with the chip shortages and whatnot and the increased demand, it's even worse. So wait times are months, if not years at the moment. Dealer reluctance has always been an issue as well. A lot of dealers they're incentivized in such a way that EVs don't make sense for them to sell. And what I mean by that is that dealers are heavily incentivized to get rid of the vehicles they have on the lot. And overwhelmingly, those vehicles are fossil cars. So if you want an EV and you go to a dealer, you typically have to order it. And they would rather sell you a car that's on the lot that's costing them money than have you just, purchase one online and then wait several months, because they've got these cars sitting there that they want to get rid of and sell, right? So there's a lot of incentives stacked up against EVs as far as the dealer networks are concerned. Now, that's not to say that there aren't good dealers out there. There are very good dealers out there. We, EVCO, are a non-partisan, non-profit organization. We will recommend dealers. We will tell you which dealers to maybe avoid, but we have no dog in this fight, so to speak. And so we will be happy if you have any questions about, I'm thinking about getting this car. Do you have a dealer in mind that, you've heard good things about? We will be happy to tell you, which dealers are good from our experience and from our members. The other thing that's a challenge and has been talked about quite a bit this evening is public charging infrastructure. Now, I just did a 1,000-kilometer road trip a few weeks ago. Well, I guess a couple of months ago now, back when there was still a bit of snow on the ground. It's the picture on the top right there. My car is the second one in, the gray one. And it was fine. There was no issues there. Now, charging infrastructure could always improve, and that's important to keep in mind. So it's good enough right now, but it could always be better, is basically the message I'm getting, or I'm trying to convey. There are challenges around multi-unit dwellings, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. It's a challenge to, like, if you live in a condo tower with 300 other condo units, it might be a challenge to get charging infrastructure installed locally in that building, but that's something that we're working on, and there are solutions available, and there are affordable solutions available probably. So it's not an insurmountable thing. It's more of an engineering challenge and a convincing condo boards challenge and that kind of thing. But it is still a challenge, and it is a roadblock to EVs. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. But as far as public charging networks go, there are very good networks now in Canada and all, you know, coast to coast. You are fully able to drive coast to coast in Canada in an EV without major issues at all. But it can always improve. There's a lot of room for improvement. Some networks are less reliable than others. Some need more stalls. And that's a response to demand, and that there's growth. So as more people get more EVs, we will need to beef up the charging infrastructure. But right now we're okay. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty good. All right. So what's coming soon? So if you're anxiously awaiting a Ford F-150, then awesome. Good for you for pre-ordering that, because it's going to be a long wait. But they are coming out. The deliveries just started recently. Rivians are also ending up in people's hands, and that's amazing. So pickup trucks are starting to come, and those are the best-selling vehicles in North America. So very excited to see these on the road, because they will displace a lot of combustion and fossil fuel burning and CO2 emissions. So the more pickup trucks, the better, because that's what everyone likes. Ford Transit Electric has also just launched. And so if you're a commercial customer, those will be an option now, if not very, very soon. Minivans, Volkswagen will be coming out with one in 2024. Chrysler has mentioned that it's on the roadmap, but they haven't really committed to anything quite yet. And then Jeep and Ford have also talked about off-road vehicles coming very soon. There should be an all-electric Jeep. There was a demo Jeep that they had made. It's like an engineering experiment kind of thing that they've taken off-road and showed off a bunch. And so you can count on those coming in the next few years as well. And then, of course, sports cars. Tesla has the new Roadster, if you're in the market for a $250,000 car. All right, so this is the EVCO Buyer's Guide. This is something that I try and keep as up to date as possible. The estimated delivery times you'll see there have a couple of stars, a couple of asterisks on it. That's a disclaimer. Basically, it's a guide. It's not the be all end all. It's to give you an idea of what you could pay, like what things cost, what the range would be for that price, how long you might wait for delivery. Chevy Bolts, I mean, if you order one now, a lot of dealers are saying it's a year out, but there are a lot of people that I talk to that say, hey, you know, I only waited 3 months for mine. So there are vehicles available. It's just you have to be patient, and you have to sort of know what you want, and then you can snipe them sometimes. Like sometimes dealers will get a cancellation and you'll be able to pick one up. So there are ways around the wait times, but for the most part, you're looking at probably a year or so. If you go to our website, evco.ca, there's a button on the top there for Buyer's Guide. The link is also here if you want to just take a screenshot of this. And this will have, it's an exhaustive list of all the EVs that are currently open for pre-orders or coming up soon for pre-order or currently orderable. All of the names are hyperlinked to the sites where you can do that, where you can purchase the vehicle. As I mentioned before, we're not tied to any one make or model. We don't really care what you buy as long as it's electric. And so we're more than happy to sort of send you in the direction of whichever EV piques your interest. And I think it's time for questions. Hopefully it didn't take too long.
No, that's great. Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that. Nice kind of run through, and great to see what's out there on the market. Someone was mentioning it would be nice if the buyer's guide also included information on select charge times and max charge rates. So I know you're always tweaking it, but
okay,
that's something you want to add.
Yeah, so I have max charge rates there. The thing about charging, especially fast charging, is that there's a lot of variables, right? So the best I can do is the max rate. If we're talking about home charging, that usually doesn't matter because that's an overnight thing. And so if you're doing level 2 charging, then it's like 8 hours, right? And depending on the size of the battery, it's like 8 hours once a week or 8 hours once a night. It's, you know, it depends on the car. So the level 2 is sort of moot. It's the level 3 fast charging that people care about, the DC fast charge. And I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's one of the columns on the right before the drivetrain, where it's front wheel drive or all wheel drive or whatever. That's the max charge rate. So that's if it's like 25 degrees outside and your car is warm and like you've just been driving on the highway, that's the speed that you can expect probably at the charger. There's a lot of variables involved, but basically that's as fast as you'll get. So hopefully that answers that question.
There you go. It's already on there.
Yeah,
So let's circle back on Lynn's question a little while ago. She was wondering when you're thinking about a year or two wait for delivery versus the evolution in tech. Is there a kind of worry that they'll be committing to outdated tech if they sign up and have to wait for vehicles?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer is no. The EV tech improves every year a little bit, but we're talking like 1% improvement. It's incremental. It's not a huge improvement every year. It's not like the olden days with computers or iPhones, right? Where like every year it's like, oh my God, I just bought an iPhone, but the new one's so much better. It's not like that with EVs. EVs improve marginally every year, and over time that adds up. But if you're looking at 2 years, you're not going to notice a difference. The EVs coming out today will be just as relevant 2 years from now, and the ones that come out from 2 years from now will be just as relevant as the ones 2 years into the future from there. So there's no reason to not buy an EV right now. If you see an EV that you're like, this is perfect for my needs, go ahead and pre-order it. It won't be obsolete when it arrives.
Oh, that's great to know, Mike. Chuck is wondering, any thoughts about the Genesis GV60? Does it have any relationship to the Ioniq 5?
Yes, it does. Actually, it looks like a great car. It's the same exact platform as the Ioniq 5 and EV6. It's just the Genesis version. It's all a matter of taste, basically, at that point. The feature set is identical. It's more just the packaging. So if you like the shape and the size and the seats and the dash and all the rest of it. But other than that, it's identical to the Ioniq 5 and EV6 as far as motors and charging speeds and all the rest. So it's a great car. I would, absolutely go for it.
And Linda's wondering about secondhand EVs. I know you deal mostly with the new ones, but maybe just a few words about secondhand EVs.
Yeah, that's another great question, Lynn. So I bought a secondhand EV. That was actually my first EV back in the before times when I commuted to work. I bought a used Leaf. Secondhand EVs are a thing. They do exist. They're on Auto Trader. You can just filter by power mode. So like fuel type, I guess it is. You just pick electricity and it'll give you all the EVs. Now, I was just looking at it today before the meeting here, and the prices are ridiculous. So I don't think now is the time to buy a used EV, because apparently my 10-year-old Nissan Leaf with 50,000 kilometers on it is worth $3,000 more than what I paid for it 5 years ago. So keep that in mind. But in normal circumstances, yes, absolutely. Used EVs are a great deal. And the best part of a used EV is that the number of kilometers almost doesn't matter, because EV powertrains don't work that way. It's more battery health that matters than how far it's driven, right? So it's more of a time than a kilometers thing. So you can use that to your advantage and get a high mileage EV with a really good battery on it. And then the dealers don't know this. If they're watching this, they will. But typically, if the battery is great, and even if it has like 200,000 kilometers on it, if the battery is relatively healthy, then you can just go to the dealer and be like, hey, but it's got like 200,000. I don't want to pay this much for that. And because that's how fossil cars have worked forever, they're more willing to discount because it's a high mileage car. But actually EVs don't work that way. So it's a bit of a trade hack, if you will.
Neat. And is that battery health something you can check out like on the dashboard?
So it depends on the car. Some of them show it right up on the dashboard. They have a series of bars that show you, like the Nissan Leaf has that, where it's like 12 bars. So you just count the bars. And if the Leaf you're looking at has 12 bars, you're good to go. If it has 11, still fine. But if it has like 8, maybe not. And the number of kilometers doesn't matter in that case. Other cars, you'd have to, get a Bluetooth dongle and maybe like slyly stick it in when you're looking, when they're not looking, and check it on your phone, because they all report it to apps on the phone. So you can get one of the car scanner apps and it'll show you the battery health. But that's not a difficult thing. And if you have questions about that, we can definitely talk offline.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you got some great hacks there, Mike. Appreciate that. Rebecca's just wondering, how is the RWD in the winter?
Rear wheel drive. Oh, so when I was, I pre-ordered the Ioniq 5 a year ago. It was June 2nd. And I wasn't able to test drive the car until February when they showed up at dealers here in Ottawa. And the one that they had as a test drive demo was rear wheel drive. And it just so happened that the day I was test driving it was a blizzard. Like, it was the worst possible day to drive a car outside. And I am like test driving this brand new Ioniq 5, this rear wheel drive on all season tires, right? Like not even snow tires. And it was fine. It was completely fine because EVs have a nearly uniform weight distribution. There's no real advantage front wheel to rear wheel. The reason why front wheel drive gas cars are better is because they have the big heavy engine in the front giving the weight on the wheels, right? So you have traction. But with an EV, because it's a battery in the floor, the weight distribution is basically 50-50. It's perfect between the two wheels. And so having it rear wheel drive actually helps a bit, because when you accelerate, the center, like the inertia of the car sort of pushes it back onto the rear wheels. So it actually helps a little bit. But yeah, with the traction control and all the magic that the car makers put into the cars now, rear wheel drive's not an issue in the winter anymore.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Mike. You're a wealth of knowledge. Really appreciate that. Yeah, no, great to see all that knowledge coming out. I know you just added your last column there, which is the V2L.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next month, so give people a little bit of a teaser. But you were able to power quite a few people during the storm because your vehicle had that. So if people are interested in that, I do recommend you coming back July 14th. We'll chat a little bit more about that when we're talking about our Tales from the Storm during our next Green Drinks. But thanks again, Mike. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Great. Well, let's segue to our last presentation. And next up, we've got Raymond Lurie, who is retired from an IT career. In the last 18 years, he spent working for Microsoft. Raymond has been interested in he's always been interested in environmental issues, and that led him to purchase an EV 8 years ago and get involved with EV owners groups, where he now occupies the position of president of the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa. He's also attended Al Gore's Climate Reality Project Leadership Corps, which reignited his passion. He splits his time between advocating for EVs, talking climate change, volunteering for the Red Cross, and coming out and helping SmartNet Alliance, and obviously the EV experience as well. So Raymond's everywhere these days, so we really appreciate him being here for our last presentation. He's going to let us know where we can expect to see the EV experience over the summer. Thanks for joining us, Raymond.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Sorry, I'm a bit under the weather today. I have a cold, so it's not COVID, it's a cold. So a bit about EVCO. So we've been around actually for 40 years now, and we're 100% volunteer nonprofit. Like Mike said, we don't have any tiebacks to any commercial interests in the EV market, right? So when we're doing test drives and when we're talking to people, we're talking about our experience. We're not talking to favor buying a certain car that we would get a kickback on, because we don't get anything on that, right? So we tell you the truth. Actually, a lot of people at Blackburn were surprised to hear me say that if I was to buy a new car today, a new electric car today, I would be buying the Ioniq 5 instead of the Model Y that I have and you see behind me there in my picture. So we're there to tell you the real story and not sugarcoat anything, right? So we're subject matters on EVs of all sizes, and really we used to do conversions of gas and diesel vehicles to electric vehicles, but now we're since they are available commercially, we actually are promoting the electrification of the transportation system. And one of the things we did over the last few years is we ran a campaign behind the scenes to get OC Transpo to transition to electric buses. And as I think someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Mike mentioned earlier, that we now have 4 electric buses in Ottawa, and we're looking forward to having many more in the coming years. Actually, I think it's Mitchell that mentioned it, right? So a bit of a shout out to CAA. So CAA actually has sponsored the wrap for the trailer that's right there. So that's a trailer that EVCO purchased for the EV experience, and we purchased that to have a bit of a billboard and also to be able to bring stuff to events, which there's always stuff you need to bring to an event if you have a tent and all that, right? So a bit about the market share. Just wanted to review that to give you an idea of how things are happening. Mike touched on it a bit there. So Mike said that we're at about 8-some%. That's the first quarter of 2022. So we'll see how far we are when we get to the fourth quarter. But I'm thinking that by the time we're done the year, we may be considerably higher than what the original projections on Mike's curve indicated. So if you look at the experience of other countries in Europe in particular, We're about 2 or 3 years behind them. And you could see right now that there's a lot of countries in Europe that are 30% market share and higher. British Columbia is at 17% for this first quarter this year, which is amazing. It's almost 1 in 5 vehicles that are electric. And think about the fact that we have a supply issue, and there still are very few pickups that are actually available in market right now that you could actually be driving today. There's a few you could reserve or buy for delivery in a year or two, but very few are actually on the roads today. So just a bit about what we've been doing right now up to now this year. So the first event we did was in Kemptville. We do a sustainability fair in Kemptville every year. It's around Earth Day. And so that was the first one where we actually used some of the stuff we had prepared for the EV experience, so the booking tool, the survey, and all that. So we learned quite a few lessons and did quite a few test drives. So 21 test drives and 4 test rides that day. So we were pretty happy with that that day. Then afterwards, we did a training session with 4 people from EnviroCenter. So Mike and I took them in our cars, and we had them because the people in EnviroCenter are generally people who will cycle and walk and use transit, which is admittedly much better than using a car, whether it's an EV or a gas car. However, the objective for us was to give them enough information, give them enough of an experience of what it's like to drive an electric car, so that they could talk to the public with some of their own experience, right? So we had 4 participants there, 2 cars. Drove around a bit, and they each had the opportunity to try both cars, and we reviewed a whole bunch of technical material while we were driving. So I think it was certainly an interesting day. Very good questions, and I think that it turned out quite well. So the next event we did was at MIFO on May 19th. We did an event there, which it was an event that the MIFO organized for the local community, and it was during the daytime, so our expectations were relatively low. Normally they have 200 or 300 participants, but this year, because of COVID and the weather for us was a bit of an issue, it was supposed to be very rainy. It turned out that they had very few registrants. They had 31 registrants actually, but we talked to just about every one of them, and we did 19 test drives, which blew us away. Because we really had 1.5 drivers. So I was doing 2 presentations during the day. So while I wasn't doing presentations, I was doing test drives. And we had also Phil Stang that was there doing test drives with his Leaf. So it was a pretty good day. Then we did the Tamarack Race Weekend, May 26th to 28th. So we did not do test drives there. But we got 842 engagements. So we talked to a lot of people, and we had the Ioniq 5 there on the floor. And I could tell you that a lot of people are very interested in that vehicle. So it, from my perspective, it's probably the top value you could get in terms of buying an EV today. So we're really happy to be able to do that and talk to so many people. And we got a bunch of people signing up for a mailing list, some of which followed up with us at the next event, which was last weekend. It was a Black Fun Fair. So Stuart talked about it a bit. We had 39 test drives, 5 test rides, and 323 engagements. So we had a lot of people come over and talk. You see the lineup we had there. There's a Leaf at the end, at the left-hand side, which we got them to park there because it's electric, but it wasn't part of our fleet. But every other car that's there, there's 7 different models out of the 8 cars. So we were very happy with the mix of vehicles that we had. Again, these are all volunteers from EVCO that are providing their personal vehicles to do test drives. So the other thing we've been doing that you might be interested in, if you already have an EV, or even if you don't and you want to come and join us, outside of the EV experience, we're doing this thing that we call Cars and Coffee. And we have 2 locations planned for June, one in Nepean and one in here in Orleans, where I live. So the idea there is to grab a cup of coffee, maybe something to eat, and talk about EVs. So if anybody's interested, you're more than welcome to join us. And the information for that is on the EVCO website. I think this is my last slide. Yeah. So if you're interested in participating in their meetings, you're more than welcome to go to evco.ca and look for the details of how to participate in the meeting. We have gone to hybrid meetings now. So we have our meetings at l'Institut Canadien Français on Dalhousie Street, downtown at the corner of York. And there are beverages there. So if you're interested, there are beverages. So, but we're still doing, though, a Teams meeting so that we could have people participate who can't make it in person. So, and we're recording also the meetings so that you could look at them afterwards if you wish. Now, I had someone earlier talk about an issue with a building, a large building that they were told that the building didn't have the capacity to charge electric vehicles. Please, if you're in a situation like that, reach out to me, or you can send an email at info@evco.ca, and we'll try to help you out there. So we've been working with a number of condos to try to solve that problem. There are definitely some challenges, but the challenges are mostly a challenge of understanding what is possible with the current electrical code. And so we've worked with several buildings where we have identified solutions that would allow them to implement charging for at least a portion of their parking slots short term, right, with very little investment. So the idea is to get them going. And once they need more charging with more vehicles, then they could use they could use more sophisticated systems, which again, I could talk about that offline with anybody who has a situation like that where they can't get charging at home. So we, like I said in a comment earlier, when someone was asking about the ratio of public chargers versus vehicles or population, we're taking a close look at that with the city. And I would say that firsthand, the preference would be to try to equip everyone to be able to charge at home, because it is truly the most convenient way to charge. Essentially, you leave home every day with a full tank. And it's the least expensive way of charging also. So what we believe is going to happen, well, what we know is happening is that people who need public charging are people who are either visitors, right? So we definitely want to have enough charging so that visitors could come over and visit our city and spend their cash in our lovely tourist industry, and have charging available to them. But the other set of people who need those chargers are mostly people who don't have charging at home, right? So we're talking about people who have no parking assigned to them, so they park on the street. This is a situation that's more common in some other cities like Montreal, but we do have that in some parts of the city. Also, there's some parts of the city that are less affluent that don't have the parking, the luxury of parking like I do in a garage, right? And having my charger right there. So what we're looking at is what are the solutions that we could put in place to support those users that don't have charging at home, right? So that's it for me right now. Nick, back to you.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Raymond. Congrats on the success so far. Looking great. I'm just curious if folks are wondering and they're wanting to test drive a particular vehicle that's sort of in the fleet, is that something that they can choose on the booking tool, or do you suggest that they come down to an event, or, just some thoughts around folks who might have their eyes on one of those particular vehicles? Is that something that, they can sort of choose online, or are they better to kind of come down to one of the events?
Well, so every event will have the vehicles that we have volunteers that could bring their vehicles, right? So it's dependent on the volunteers that are going to participate at a particular event. And also we'll have obviously the Communauto vehicles that they'll be able to test drive, right? So really depend on the event. Now for ad hoc test drives, EnviroCenter is working on a system where we'll be able to display the availability of the volunteers as well as the EnviroCenter staff, so that people could either test drive the Communauto vehicles or a personal vehicle from one of the volunteers at EVCO, right? So we don't have every model of vehicle in in our fleet, but we do have quite a variety. So, and we'll try to make as wide a variety available as possible.
Great. Stuart, did you want to jump in with some comments on that?
No, I think Raymond's covered it all nicely there. Yes, I mean, it really, we're very grateful for the support from EVCO and their volunteers and bringing their vehicles out to events and for test drives. So yes, I mean, they are volunteers, so the vehicle's available. Mostly depends on their availability at those events. So, but they have a great range of different cars, and I know from the events we've done so far that people are interested in all the vehicles that are parked up there. So whether it's a Tesla or a Hyundai Ioniq or a Nissan or whatever it is, there's people are interested in all of them. So that's good.
Yeah, and maybe one other little point I could make is that the driving experience will be somewhat different from model to model. However, some of the basics, for example, having 100% torque at 0, are very similar from model to model, and quite a bit different from a gas vehicle. So, you don't necessarily have to try the exact model you're looking for to get a good idea of how the vehicles will perform, right? And there are some vehicles. So, for example, Mike's Ioniq 5 is very similar to the Kia EV6, right? So, so there are vehicles that are close to just about everything that's on the market at the moment.
Great, and we know, so next Tuesday at the Nepean Sportsplex is the next chance. Any sort of sneak previews, not to put you guys on the hot seat, but any kind of sneak previews of any other events that we can expect to see over the summer? Anything that we can kind of announce now, or should people just check back on the website?
Well, there's one event that I don't know if I want to pre-announce it, but it's an event we usually do at the end of September with SmartNet Alliance.
Yes, the Sustainability Showcase. So we'll make sure that folks come down for that. It is September 24th, so folks can circle their calendar. We'll definitely have some more information on that coming up later this spring and summer. That should be a great one. Right down on Lansdowne Park, so easy for folks to get to. And we're going to have lots of vehicles. We'll have the EV Experience truck as well. So looking forward to that one. Hopefully we get a nice sunny day, but we'll be going throughout anyway. Chuck's just wondering, and I don't know if Mike wants to pop in here too, any thoughts about the Audi Q4 or, sorry, that chat just cut off, or the Volvo XC40? Raymond, Mike, anybody who wants to pop in on that one?
Sure. I mean, they're both good cars. I've heard a lot of good things about both of them. I know the XC40, because it's kind of like a block, it has a bit lower range than you would expect for a car of its, class and size or whatever, but it's not like unreasonably low or anything like that. It's still fine. And then the e-tron, I've spoken to a couple of e-tron owners and they love their e-trons. So I think it's an Audi thing. If you like Audis, then you'll like the e-tron. That's all I've got for that.
Great. Well, thanks so much, everybody. What a great evening. It's great to introduce everybody to the EV Experience. I want to thank Steve Winkleman from OCAF, obviously, for the funding and coming in at the beginning. Stuart Slaymaker over at Enviro Center and the whole team, Jennifer, Elise, Vita, all those folks that are on the back end there designing that amazing looking website. Mitchell House from the city for the important work that they're doing around EV charging and electrifying their fleet. It was great to hear from Wilson, who was powered by solar up in Yellowknife there. Thanks to Wilson for coming in. That was amazing. Want to really thank Riyadh as well, Riyadh Abdul, for popping in and joining us from Hydro Ottawa. And of course, the gentleman from Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa, and for all their work, Mike Banks and Raymond Lurie. So make sure you go check out the website, EV Experience. The booking tool will be live next week, so you can start booking your test drives. Make sure you come down to some of the events over the summer. Next Tuesday is the first one at the Nepean Sportsplex. And this is the time to start dabbling your toes into electric vehicles. Like I said, I did my first test drive a couple of years ago, and it was great. Ray, did you have some final thoughts there?
Yeah, just to reemphasize, I think Jen put it in the chat there, but we're gonna do the Tuesday nights throughout the Ottawa area throughout the summer and early fall, and we're gonna do other bigger events, right? So if you want to be notified of an event that's close to your part of the city, If you sign up on our website, then we'll send you an email telling you that there's something close to your location. So that way you could take advantage of it without having to travel across the city. Okay.
And also, I mean,
yeah,
I would
walk or bike over.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to jump in and say, you know, we do have the Cars and Coffee almost every weekend, just not this weekend because I'm going camping, but it's a more of a casual thing. If you have just want to pick our brains about EVs or you're just curious, no pressure. It's just a couple hours on a Saturday morning at a coffee shop. So you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. We put it out on all the socials and our website. So you can check out that as well.
Great. Well, thanks again, everybody. It's been a fabulous evening. It's so amazing to think that something that we kind of just dreamed up a year ago has come to fruition, is launched and rolling. It's a fabulous website. Really invite everyone to get over there, check it out, scroll through, make sure you book your test drive, make sure you come down to some events and talk electric vehicles. These folks love to talk all that. Stay tuned later this summer for more details on our showcase, and join us next month. We're going to be talking Tales from the Storm. We've got some great stories of community resilience using renewable technologies. That's Thursday, July 14th. We're back again with virtual green drinks. Once again, I'm Nick from SmartNet Alliance, and thanks again for joining us. Have yourself a great night and get behind the wheel of an electric vehicle. Cheers, everybody.